The 100-year-old portrait was found, and scholars turned pale when they zoomed in on the eyes. The morning rain tapped softly against the tall windows of the Massachusetts Historical Museum as curator Linda Chen gently unwrapped the package on her examination table. The donor, an elderly woman named Patricia, sat nearby in a wheelchair, her granddaughter standing close beside her. "This photograph has been in our family for generations," Patricia said, her voice weak but steady. "My grandmother kept it in a special frame on the mantel. She used to tell us stories about the people in it, the Morrison family, our ancestors from the 1890s. Linda lifted the photograph from its wrapping. The image, mounted on thick cardboard backing typical of the time, was surprisingly well preserved. 6 people stood posed in a Victorian garden, formal and serious, frozen forever in that moment. The sepia tones were only slightly faded, and the details remained clear. "It's beautiful," Linda said, studying it through a magnifying glass. "The clothing, the garden, the arrangement. This is a fine example of family portrait photography from the 1890s. Patricia leaned forward a little. "My mother always said there was something special about that photo, something important. But she never explained what she meant. She would just look at it like she was holding a secret." Linda typed notes into the museum's catalog system. "Do you know anything about the people in the photograph? Their names or what they did?" Patricia's granddaughter opened a folder. "The photo is dated 1895, taken in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's Henry Morrison and his wife Eleanor. The 4 children are Thomas, William, Margaret, and little Clara." Linda carefully studied each face. The father, Henry, sat in the center with the posture of a man used to authority. Eleanor beside him looked refined but distant. The 4 children appeared to be between 6 and 14 years old. 2 boys stood behind their parents and 2 girls sat in front. "Your family has quite a history," Linda said. "We'll digitize this for our archives. High-resolution scans will capture details the naked eye can't see." "That's exactly what I hoped," Patricia said quietly. "My mother always said the truth was in the details. Maybe now someone will finally understand what she meant." Linda smiled, thinking it was only a sentimental thought. She had no idea that within 48 hours, those digital details would uncover a secret the Morrison family had hidden for more than 100 years. A secret sitting in plain sight, waiting for modern technology to reveal it. She logged the photograph into the museum system, assigned it a catalog number, and scheduled it for scanning. Outside, the rain kept falling on the streets of Boston, where the Morrison story had begun long ago. Marcus Webb adjusted the museum's high-resolution scanner, getting ready for another routine day. The machine could capture images at 2,400 dpi, revealing details completely invisible in the original prints. "We've got a nice family portrait from the 1890s, his assistant Jaime said, placing the Morrison photograph on the scanner bed. "The curator wants full documentation, close-ups of faces, clothing, and background." Marcus started the scan. A bright light moved slowly across the photograph, collecting tiny details. A few minutes later, the digital image appeared on his screen, huge and sharp, made of millions of pixels. "Beautiful clarity," Marcus said, zooming in. "You can even see the threads in the lace on the mother's dress." Jamie leaned in as Marcus examined each face. The father's stern look, the mother's quiet sadness, the stiff expressions of the children, all appeared with striking detail. Then Marcus zoomed in on the oldest boy's face and suddenly stopped. "Jamie, look at this." The boy on the left looked about 13 or 14, wearing a formal jacket. His expression was serious, his jaw tight, but his eyes made Marcus freeze. "Is that—" Jamie started. "Heterochromia," Marcus finished. "Complete heterochromia." They stared at the screen. The boy's right eye was dark brown, almost black. His left eye was a pale blue-gray. The difference was clear and impossible to miss. One eye warm and dark, the other light and cool. "That's very unusual," Jamie said slowly. "You'd think the family would have mentioned it somewhere." Marcus opened the documents Patricia had provided. He checked birth records, census forms, school files, letters. Every record described Thomas Morrison the same way. Brown hair, brown eyes, average height. No mention of mismatched eyes anywhere. "Maybe the records are for the wrong child," Jamie suggested. Marcus zoomed out to the full family portrait. The ages, positions, and clothing all matched perfectly. This was clearly Thomas Morrison, the eldest child of Henry and Eleanor Morrison. He zoomed in on the other children. William had brown eyes. Margaret had brown eyes. Clara had brown eyes. Only Thomas showed this striking feature that appeared nowhere in official records. "This doesn't make sense," Marcus said. "Heterochromia isn't something you forget. It's obvious. So why is it never mentioned?" Jamie took photos of the screen. "We need to show this to Linda and Dr. Rashid. She handles family history cases." Marcus saved the files and marked Thomas's image for special attention. As he did, something else caught his eye. Eleanor Morrison's face. Instead of gentle pride, her expression showed tension. Her jaw was tight. Her hand rested on Thomas's shoulder, gripping him firmly. The fabric beneath her fingers was pressed down, as if she was holding him there, afraid he might slip away. Dr. Sarah Rashid spread papers across her desk, while Marcus and Linda watched. As the museum's consulting genealogist, she had spent 3 days digging into Morrison family records, and her face showed confusion. "This is one of the strangest cases I've ever seen," she said, pointing to a document. "Thomas Morrison, born March 15, 1881, Worcester, Massachusetts. Parents listed as Henry and Eleanor Morrison," she read from school records. "Age 14. Brown hair, brown eyes, 5 feet 6 inches. No mention of heterochromia." She opened the high-resolution scan on her laptop. But there it is, clear as day. Complete heterochromia. He would have had this from birth. It doesn't appear later or disappear. Linda leaned closer. Could all the records be wrong? Some kind of clerical mistake? "Not across every document," Dr. Rashid said. "Marriage license from 1905, eyes brown. Military registration in 1917, eyes brown. Passport application in 1920, eyes brown. Every official record says the same thing." Marcus added, "I checked the photograph carefully. There's no damage or manipulation. The eyes are real." Dr. Rashid opened another file. "These are Eleanor Morrison's private letters to her sister from the 1890s, she read aloud. "Thomas grows more like his father every day. The same dark eyes, the same serious nature." "Dark eyes," Linda repeated. "Not one dark eye and one light eye." "Exactly," Dr. Rashid said. She held up a newspaper clipping. "Worcester Daily Times, June 1895. It mentions the Morrison boys, Thomas and William, both having their father's dark coloring." She leaned back in her chair. "So either everyone failed to notice Thomas's eyes for 40 years, which is impossible, or the boy in this photograph is not the biological child of Henry and Eleanor Morrison." The room went quiet. "You're saying he was adopted?" Linda asked softly. "Informally," Dr. Rashid said. "Formal adoption was rare in the 1890s. Families sometimes took in children quietly. Orphans, children of friends, or cases more complicated than that." She pulled up census records. In 1880, Henry and Eleanor are newly married with no children. In 1890, they have 4 children, aged 9, 7, 5, and 3. Thomas appears in their home in 1881, the same year he's said to be born. Marcus frowned. "So he shows up, and then on, everyone treats him as their biological son." Dr. Rashid nodded. "A retroactive birth record. Schools accepting the family's word." She looked again at the photograph. Those eyes would have been remembered, so the community must have known. They knew Thomas wasn't biologically theirs, but they kept the secret. "But why?" Linda asked. Dr. Rashid returned a week later with new evidence. She spread more documents across the conference table. "I searched earlier census records for children with unusual features. Sometimes census workers wrote notes in the margins." She pointed to a page. 1880 census, Worcester. O'Sullivan family. Irish immigrants, father deceased. Mother Margaret O'Sullivan. 1 male child about 3 years old." Linda read the note aloud. "Child has mismatched eyes. 1 dark, 1 pale." Marcus swallowed. "Irish. In 1880, Irish immigrants faced heavy discrimination here. Dr. Rashid said. No Irish need apply signs were common. She showed more records. Margaret O'Sullivan appears in city directories from 1878 to 1881. Then she disappears. No death record, no relocation, and her child disappears from Irish records the same year Thomas appears in the Morrison home. They studied old maps. Margaret lived 6 blocks from the Morrison house, close enough that Eleanor might have hired her for laundry. That's my belief, Dr. Rashid said. Eleanor met Margaret and her child. Linda asked quietly, "What happened to Margaret?" "I found this," Dr. Rashid said, opening a worn journal. Eleanor Morrison's diary from 1881. She read aloud. April 3, 1881. "I have made a decision Henry opposes, but my conscience demands. A child's hood not suffer for circumstances beyond his control. I will give him safety, education, and our name. God forgive me if this is wrong, but I cannot believe love is wrong." Silence filled the room. "She took him," Linda whispered. Dr. Rashid read another entry. 3 weeks later, "Thomas is settling in, though he still wakes crying for her. I tell him his mother loved him and wanted him safe. He cried for his mother," Linda said. "Margaret was alive." Dr. Rashid nodded. "This wasn't adoption after death. I needed to know why." The answer came from a medical historian researching old hospital records. April 1881, she said during a call. Margaret O'Sullivan was admitted after a violent assault by her employer, Richard Dwyer, a textile factory owner. Hospital notes described injuries and fear for her young son. One note said Mrs. E. Morrison visited and offered to care for the child during recovery. Another said Margaret feared false theft charges. Dwyer attacked her, then accused her, Marcus said. Yes, the historian confirmed. Common at the time. If she went to prison, Dr. Rashid said, her son would be sent to an institution, the final record read. May 1, 1881. Patient released. Son, age 3, now in permanent care of the Morrison family at mother's request. Patient leaving Worcester to look for work in another place. Miss Morrison has given money for travel. Everything finally made sense. Eleanor had not stolen the child. Margaret, facing prison and the almost certain loss of her son to cruel institutions, had been forced to make an impossible decision. She could give him to a family who could protect him, or keep him and watch him suffer. She gave him away to save him, Linda said softly. Dr. Rashid looked again at the photograph, at Eleanor's hand gripping Thomas's shoulder. And Margaret, she asked, did she survive? Dr. Kozlowski's face grew serious. I haven't found a death record, but I also haven't found any trace of her after she left Worcester. 3 days later, Patricia called the museum, her voice shaking but excited. My granddaughter and I have been searching my mother's house, she said, really searching, lifting floorboards, checking behind wall panels. My mother always said there were secrets. We found something. Can we bring it to you? An hour later, Patricia and her granddaughter Jennifer arrived carrying a rusted metal document box. Linda, Marcus, and Dr. Rashid gathered in the conservation lab. It was hidden in the wall of what used to be Thomas Morrison's bedroom, Jennifer explained, behind loose boards near the fireplace. The house has been in our family since 1900, when Thomas bought it. The box had been hidden inside the chimney space. Dr. Rashid opened it carefully. Inside were several items. A small child's shoe, worn and carefully patched. A wooden toy horse, roughly carved but clearly made with love. A pressed flower. And beneath everything, a letter sealed with wax. The wax seal was cracked with age. Dr. Rashid gently broke it and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was uneven and strained, written by someone barely able to write, forcing the words onto the page. She read aloud, To my son, if you ever read this, my name is Margaret O'Sullivan. I am your mother. You will not remember me, but I remember every moment with you. You had mismatched eyes like your grandmother, one dark and one light. People said it made you look strange, but I thought it made you beautiful. I am giving you to Mrs. Morrison because I cannot keep you safe. A bad man is trying to hurt us, and I have no way to protect you. Mrs. Morrison is kind, and she promised me you will have a good life with schooling, food, and safety. She promised to love you, and I believe her. I wanted to keep you so badly that my heart is breaking. but I love you more than I want you. Do you understand? I love you more than I want you, so I am letting you go where you will be safe and happy. If you are grown someday and learn the truth, please know I thought of you every day. I worked hard and saved money, hoping one day I could see you again, even from far away, just to know you were well. I never stopped being your mother, even though another woman will raise you. Your first word was bird. You loved watching them. I hope you still do. I hope you have a good life. I hope you are happy. I hope someday you forgive me. Your loving mother, Margaret O'Sullivan, May 5th, 1881. The room was silent except for the sound of Patricia quietly crying. He knew, Linda finally said. Thomas found this letter. He kept it hidden his whole life, but he knew. Dr. Rashid looked at the other items. These must be from his first 3 years with Margaret. Eleanor must have given them to him when she told him the truth. Patricia wiped her tears. My grandmother, Thomas's daughter, once told me something. She said her father used to stare at his reflection, studying his eyes. She asked him why, and he said, "These eyes are my mother's gift. They show me who I really am." He meant Eleanor, but he meant Margaret. Jennifer took out her phone. There's more. I've been looking into Thomas's later life. He became a teacher and worked in Worcester public schools for 30 years. But look where he taught. She showed them a newspaper clipping from 1910. Thomas was teaching at an Irish Catholic school, a Protestant man teaching Irish immigrant children. He went back to his people, Dr. Rashid said quietly. Knowing where he came from, he chose to serve them. Dr. Rashid spent 2 weeks tracing Margaret O'Sullivan after she left Worcester in 1881. The trail was thin and frustrating. A single Irish woman moving through cities where records were poorly kept and immigrant lives were rarely documented. Finally, she found a possible lead in Baltimore. A Margaret O'Sullivan appeared in city directories from 1882 to 1890, working as a seamstress. The address placed her in the Irish neighborhood near Fells Point. It's not certain, Dr. Rashid told the team. O'Sullivan is a common name, but the timing fits. She left Worcester in 1881. This woman appears in Baltimore in 1882. Marcus looked at the map. Baltimore was a major destination for Irish immigrants. There was work and a large community. She could easily disappear there. I contacted St. Patrick's Church in Fells Point, Dr. Rashid said. They've kept records since 1850. The archivist found this. She showed them a church document dated April 1890. It recorded the death of Margaret O'Sullivan, about 40 years old, occupation seamstress, cause of death pneumonia, buried in the church cemetery. She died only 9 years after giving him up, Linda said quietly. Thomas would have been 12. There's more, Dr. Rashid said. The record includes a note. She read it aloud. The deceased left instructions regarding savings, sum of $47 to be held in trust for her son, should he ever be located. Son's name, Thomas. Distinctive feature, mismatched eyes, one dark and one pale. Marcus leaned forward. She saved money for him. For 9 years, Dr. Rashid said, working as a seamstress. $47 was several months of wages. She never forgot his eyes. Patricia said softly. She described them exactly so he could be found. Jennifer asked what everyone was thinking. Did Thomas ever know about the money? Did anyone tell him she had died? Dr. Rashid pulled up another record. The church tried to find him. They sent letters to Worcester Catholic groups asking about a boy named Thomas with mismatched eyes. But Thomas was living as Thomas Morrison, attending Protestant schools. His Irish identity was hidden. The letters never reached him. So the money just stayed there, Marcus said. For 30 years, Dr. Rashid replied, until 1920, when the unclaimed funds were given to charity. Linda looked again at Thomas in the photograph. He never knew she tried to provide for him. I'm not sure, Dr. Rashid said slowly. Look at this. She showed them a church visitor log from June 1905. A man had visited Margaret O'Sullivan's grave. The priest described him as a well-dressed young man, about 24 years old, with mismatched eyes. He spent a long time at the grave and left a donation of $50 for the orphan fund in Margaret's name. He found her, Patricia whispered. $50, Marcus said. Almost exactly what she saved for him. Dr. Rashid nodded. The priest wrote that the man asked if Margaret had left any message. When told about the trust fund, he seemed comforted knowing she had thought of him until the end. Patricia later returned with one final box, Eleanor Morrison's personal papers. Among them was a sealed envelope marked to be opened only by her children after her death. My grandmother kept this, Patricia explained. Thomas's daughter. She never shared it outside the family. But now the truth should be known. Dr. Rashid opened the envelope. Inside were pages written in Eleanor's careful hand, dated January 1923. She read aloud, "To my beloved children, there is something you must know about your father, Thomas. He was not born to Henry and me, though we loved him as fiercely as parents could. His true mother was Margaret O'Sullivan, an Irish woman of great courage and love. In 1881, Margaret was attacked by her employer and faced false charges that would have sent her to prison. Her son would have been sent to an institution where Irish children suffered terrible fates. Margaret came to me, not asking for charity, but asking if I would save her child. I had recently lost a pregnancy and was grieving. Henry feared scandal, but I could not turn away. We took Thomas, claimed him as our son, and raised him with every advantage we could give. I kept his origins secret to protect him. When Thomas was 16, I told him the truth and showed him Margaret's letter and the keepsakes. I feared his anger. Instead, he wept and said, 'She loved me enough to give me away.' We searched for her for years. By the time we found her grave in Liltimore, she had been dead for 15 years. Thomas never blamed me. He carried both identities, Morrison and O'Sullivan, and spent his life honoring both. I do not know if what I did was right. I saved one child but could not save his mother. But know that I loved your father completely, and Margaret's courage was the bravest thing I ever witnessed. With eternal love, Eleanor Morrison." The last pages included a photograph of a young Irish woman holding a small child. Even in the faded image, the difference in the child's eyes was clear. "Margaret and Thomas," Patricia said softly, "before everything changed." Dr. Rashid later uncovered something remarkable. Church donation records showed that starting in 1905, Thomas Morrison donated $50 every year to the orphan fund in Margaret's name. Every year for 46 years, until 1 year before his death, he visited her grave almost every year on May 5th, the date of her letter. He never missed it. He couldn't bring her back, Patricia said, so he honored her the only way he could. Thomas spent 30 years teaching Irish immigrant children, choosing lower pay to serve the community his birth mother came from. In every photograph of him, his mismatched eyes remained unchanged. Those eyes connected him to Margaret across time, across class, across loss. They led others to the truth when everything else tried to hide it. When the museum exhibition finally opened, visitors stood silently before the photograph, zooming in on Thomas's eyes. They saw not just a strange detail, but a life shaped by sacrifice, love, and impossible choices. Patricia touched the screen gently. "Your eyes told your story when nothing else could," she whispered. "Margaret would be proud, Eleanor would be at peace, and now the truth is finally seen.